Hi Year 6 and welcome to this week's geography lesson. We are going to continue our learning around the UK today and we're going to look at some of the UK's cities, biggest main cities, and talk about Bristol within that as well. So let's just recap from last week's geography lesson. Can you pause the video and write down or think about the answer to this question? What is the difference between physical and human geography? Okay, so if you joined us last geography lesson last week, we were talking about physical and human features and landmarks in the UK. So physical referred to those features or landmarks that were made by nature. So physical features are mountains and rivers, hills and valleys, anything that has been made by nature. The physical branch of geography can also refer to things like the weather. So physical features like your rivers and your mountains, but also physical aspects like weather. And so when we looked at natural disasters, that's also physical. Human geography refers to anything that involves humans or the way humans have affected the geography of a place. So we talked about population, farming was an example, and then human features are those that have been constructed, have been made by people. So features like bridges or castles, cathedrals, anything that's built by humans is a human feature. So we looked at some different landmarks and we popped them around our map last week. Let's see if we can remember the capital cities of our 4 countries. So hopefully by now we have locked in our brains that the UK is made up of England, Wales, Scotland and just Northern Ireland, not the Republic of Ireland. Pause there and see if you can remember those capital city names. Okay, hopefully again this is now locked in knowledge. So capital of England, London. Capital of Wales, Cardiff. Capital of Northern Ireland is Belfast, and capital of Scotland is Edinburgh, the hardest to spell there. So well done if you remembered that. Today we're going to talk specifically about cities. So what is a city? You might have your own thoughts in your head about that, your own kind of definition. So let's look at what a city actually is. So a city is a type of settlement. Now a settlement is anywhere where people are living. Okay, they can range from being small, a single house with people living in it, a small village, a town, up to a city. And a city can be permanent or a settlement can be permanent or temporary. So when we looked at, when we talked about refugees quite a lot near the beginning of year 6, we looked at different camps, refugee camps, and those are places where people are living, but they are temporary settlements. They're just set up for people to live there for a short amount of time because of things like wars. They're not permanent settlements, whereas towns and cities that we know are permanent settlements. So we can split, I think this is going to come out of screen a little bit. So we can split settlements into hamlets. Okay, so a hamlet is incredibly small. There's places where there's a few houses together and there's not really any facilities, not really shops or things like that. Then we move down to a village, the next biggest type of settlement. So it's still quite small, but the difference is it has got a few amenities, a few facilities. So it might have a village shop, a post office, it might have a school, a doctor's, it might have a pub or a restaurant, but it hasn't got lots and lots of things and it hasn't got lots and lots of houses. A town, so thinking about population meaning how many people live there, tens of thousands of people in a town rather than hundreds or thousands in a village. Towns have lots of facilities, so they're going to have lots of houses, but they're also going to have shopping centres, different schools, primary and secondary schools, probably railway stations so that they can make links to other towns and cities, possibly hospitals. Okay, and then you have a city, the biggest type of settlement. lots of people and lots of functions. So these cities, they might have bigger still. So you've got primary and secondary schools, but these are going to have universities. These are going to have the main large hospitals. They are going to have the sports stadiums for the area. Now, in the past, cities were identified as places containing cathedrals. And I think I've spoken about that before, but actually, today the Queen has the power to decide what's considered a city. And she bases that on lots of factors, and including the size of the population. So a large population would make a city, but because of the historic rule that cities are places with cathedrals, there are some small cities. So we looked in our reading this week, we looked at the city of Wells, which is small but has a cathedral, and there's also a city called St David's in Wales, which is small but has a cathedral, so it is a city. Now, thinking about these different settlements then and the different sizes of them, hamlet, village, town and city, have a think. What would Bristol be described as, and what would Bradley Stoke be described as? Okay, so Bristol is a city. It has a cathedral, it has universities, it has sports stadiums, it has hospitals. Bradley Stoke is a town. So it's got lots of houses, lots of people, but we've also got schools, primary and secondary schools. We've got shops and we've got doctors and things like that. So it would be considered a town. But interestingly, it wasn't too long ago that where Bradley Stoke sits now was just farmland. So not so many years ago, before you guys were born, but not so many years ago, nothing existed in Bradley Stoke. It wasn't a town. So it's been built up very, very recently because of the need for houses for people to live in. And now it is a town because it's got enough houses, enough people, and enough of those facilities as well. So the use of the land in Bradley Stoke has changed a lot over recent years, but we are now a town. So this links to what I've just said, actually, the function of settlements, of cities and towns. Now, most of our settlements in the UK are now multifunctional, so they have lots of functions. They're not just about buying and selling, or they're not just about tourism. They've got lots of things, so they have people come and visit, they're for business, they're for education, all different kinds of functions. But when settlements first began to grow, they had one main function. So a settlement would have begun, people would have moved to a place for a specific reason. Here are some examples. So we've got a port. So a port being a place by water where boats come in to trade different things. Liverpool and Southampton are examples there. You could have a market town, so where it held a market and it was about trade within the town. Lots of places still have markets, but it's not necessarily their main function. A resort, so a seaside resort, so coastal places would have started as resorts. And then natural resources in places where it helps them to thrive as a city. So, for example, in Sheffield, it was an important place for producing steel. And so that was its function, producing steel and then obviously supplying that to other places. So knowing Bristol and the features of Bristol, think about where it is, what it's got in its centre. Which of these functions do you think was Bristol's original function? So Bristol's original function was as a port. So if you've been into the centre and you've got the kind of waterways within the centre, it was really important for ships coming in and for trading. It was a really important place for people to come by boat. Okay, now obviously that is not its main function, but that was its original function because of its proximity to the water. So we're going to start with a sort of relatively quick map activity. And I would like you to either use an atlas if you've got one at home, or you could look it up online, or you can use the given map that I've given you that's got lots of cities marked on. Can you work out what these cities are? Just give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes, see how many you can get and come back. Okay, so here are your answers, and you might want to pause this screen so that you can check whether you were right or not, and hopefully you did well. I want to think a little bit before you move on to your main activity about position and direction. So I've got a compass here. We've got north at the top, so north, east, south and west, and the diagonal points within those are north, east, south, east and southwest. We'll do a little bit more on maps and compass and direction as our geography unit goes on, but for today you just need to have a general idea of direction. So if I was going to ask you where in the UK you would find Plymouth, where is Plymouth's location, what could your answer be? So we could talk about it being in England, first of all, that's its country. We could talk about it being in Devon, second of all, that's its county. And then positionally, Plymouth is in the southwest of England. So if I put the compass on the top of the map, down here, southwest are Cornwall, Devon, Bristol, southwest, we're in the southwest, it would be considered southwest of England. If I was to think about Newcastle, it's up here, it's North England, and it's a sort of northeast, it's on this side of it, so it could be considered northeast. Norwich, which is down here, could be considered east, okay? It's relatively central and it's on the eastern side. So again, if I put the map there, you can see that that's pointing. So when you go on to do your activity today, one of the things that you need to know is location, and it would be really good if you could use some of this positional language. North, northeast, east, south, southwest. That would be really, really good geographical language to add in. So here is your task. I've got a list here of the 10 largest cities in the UK by population, and I want you to go and find out some information about them. I want you to start with Bristol because that's our closest local city, and I want you to try to find some of these. So you can find out different information if you want. You can create your own template if you want. You can set it out exactly however you want, but if you want a bit of support with that, I've just popped a little fact file template as a PDF on the website. So the name of the place, the location in the country, in the UK, sorry, so it's country, it's county, and that positional language. Can you find its population, how many people live there? Can you list any famous landmarks, and a bonus if you can say whether they are human or physical? Are there any famous people associated with that place? So I want you to start with Bristol, fill this in, and see if you can get the information for all 10 of them. That would be a real challenge. If you wanted to go even further, then you could think back to when I talked about function of places, original function of settlements like ports and resorts, and find out the original function of the city and add that to your fact file. So start off with Bristol. I would say that everyone will be able to do Bristol plus 2 or 3 more cities. It would be perfect if you could do 5 of them, and it would be amazing if you can get all 10 done. I'd love to see what you come out with. I hope that you find it interesting finding out about these different places, and try, as you're finding out, try to commit these things to memory, because as we go on, we're going to talk more about where cities and counties are in the UK, and so hopefully you'll be building up some of this locational knowledge as you go. Thank you for joining the lesson today.